be able to do this.
We have uncovered wonders undreamt by our ancestors who first speculated on the nature of those wandering lights in the night sky. We've crossed the solar system and sent ships to the stars. But we continue continue to search, we can't help it. A central element of the human future lies far beyond the Earth. If we crave some cosmic purpose, then let us find ourselves a worthy goal.
Can get a little bit sweaty sometimes, and there are
there you go. Okay, now you can hear me. Holy shit. I haven't used OBS in like a month, and I installed my new keyboard, the microphone, I had to change it, blah blah, so oops. I tried to set everything up, but yeah, mistakes were made. Okay, guys. Welcome. Happy holidays. 25th of December. We are about to go to the NASA channel and watch the launch of the Space Telescope James Webb live. Before we do that, well, I actually only have 29 minutes. I'm gonna send you guys the video. This is the video. Boop. I'm gonna be watching that video. I can show it right now. This is what's happening now. I don't know why the fuck it's. You can do this. There you go.
The rotation of the Earth. So let me take this globe. Basically,
I don't know what they're explaining.
We are all traveling at roughly 1,000 miles per hour. That's very convenient. Of course, we don't feel it. If we were on the poles, that speed would be very, very close to zero. It means that when Webb is right now on the launch pad, inside the fairing of the Ariane 5, it's already traveling in the right direction, and we can use this extra boost to get us into space. That's also very convenient for Webb, because doing so, it can save its fuel and increase its operational life in orbit.
We were watching these guys, or should we just comment by myself?
and
because
that really is important.
I wanted to do like a brief
so
introduction.
A real proper slingshot effect.
Oh, what the hell is this?
The facilities here are ultra high tech, and that's exactly what Webb needs, isn't it?
Yeah, that's very convenient for
But
Webb.
if they're explaining interesting stuff, I don't want to interrupt them either.
So this is the
I don't
perfect
know.
meeting between nature and technology, and people come from all over the world to work here. But one thing that's been very important for Webb is cleanliness, because you know that one speck of dust could alter the vision of the observatory in space. That's why we have been extremely careful in keeping a pristine environment in all our facilities, from Webb's arrival in French Guiana to sealing it inside the rocket.
So let's talk a little bit now about the Webb Space Telescope. I really don't think you need me to tell you that it is.
There's like a dozens of
a
videos, really interesting
human
videos explaining
ingenuity.
everything. Since
And you don't get
from
to
everything.
make a telescope as complex as the James Webb Telescope and as remarkable without tremendous amount of collaboration. And the James Webb Space Telescope is indeed the product of a partnership between 3 space agencies who came together to create it.
In case you want to
NASA,
know
the European
why is it
Space
named
Agency,
James Webb,
and also the Canadian Space Agency. So here to talk about that now is Greg Robinson from NASA. Greg, thank you very much for coming.
I was watching
to the
this
floor,
video
and to the
before.
Fish
It's
Bowl
really
as well for
interesting.
us.
You want
And we're
to
talking
search it on YouTube?
serious teamwork here, aren't we?
Yes, Katie. We've benefited from an amazing partnership with the Canadian Space Agency
I
and the
watch a
European
few of
Space
them.
Agency.
I also watched this
Over the
one.
life of the development, we've had more than 10,000
All of them
people
are
actually
really
touch
good. I
Webb.
really recommend it. Some
29
of them are
states in
like
the
10
US
minutes, others
and
are like
14
half an hour.
countries across the globe.
Depends.
And not to
But
mention
search that.
the amazing industrial base across the globe.
And
that
I will
benefit here.
recommend one more.
In order to do bold missions like this,
Spamming
it
my
takes
chat,
lots of
guys.
resources and lots of expertise. So we maximize
There you go.
everyone's expertise.
I guess
And
we're
how
gonna
did
watch the
this
NASA stream
bold
until launch.
mission
It's 26 minutes. So.
get onto an Ariane 5 European launcher?
So as part of the partnership,
I hope
the Canadian
the
Space Agency contributed
volume is
science
fine.
instruments, and they're incredibly important for this mission. And so did ESA, science instruments, and the amazing Ariane 5 that we will see take us on this journey and put us in the right direction to get to Lagrange Point 2. And we're looking forward to that.
It's a tremendous atmosphere here, isn't it, in the Mission Control Center? There's a real buzz here today. I wonder how you must be feeling, Greg. I mean, it's got to be a very, very emotional time knowing that your telescope is sitting there on top of the rocket, getting closer to launch.
It's certainly amazing. Often talk about the butterflies, and people keep asking me, have they started? Have they started? And yes, they're starting. And when we get to about 20 minutes out, they will start flying a lot. So
Well,
the excitement is just amazing.
The excitement is building, and of course everyone very cool, calm and collected. Thank you, Greg Robinson. You can take your position back in the fishbowl now, because I know you've got a lot of work to do in there. Greg Robinson, thank you very much indeed for joining us. So the Ariane 5 launch vehicle is the heaviest lifter in the Ariane 5 Ariane family
Well,
of
these are
launches. And
automatic
Raphael, she has got an incredible
subtitles,
track
so
record,
they
hasn't
may
she, of
not be very
success?
accurate.
Yeah,
but
this is a very reliable and successful rocket. Webb is going to be the 112th Ariane 5 to be launched. And the very first Ariane, the Ariane 1, took off exactly 42 years ago. Yesterday, this was on Christmas Eve, 1979. Good symbol.
Yeah, and hopefully we're going to get a good Christmas present today as well. And I mean, the rocket is also, you don't get to build a rocket like this without collaboration either, do you?
Of course, just like Webb, actually. In fact, 12 different countries have been participating in the development
Very
of
nice
the Ariane
information.
5, with Ariane Group now being the industrial prime.
And we have a scale model right next to you, Raphael. Why don't you talk us through it?
Oh,
The
he
rocket
has the
is
same
made
name
of
as me,
sections,
Raphael.
and we often call those stages, which is what you might hear during the commentary.
Exactly. So first you have the two boosters, solid boosters, that are located on each side of the rocket. They will provide the main thrust in order to literally push the rocket against the gravity of the
Spain
Earth.
helped with
Then you
building
have
this. Nice.
these big tanks that form the main
idea.
cryogenic stage, with the main engine Vulcan at the bottom.
And then you have the Webb telescope right at the top, inside the fairing.
It is right there on the launch pad, and together they are put on top of the third stage, a cryogenic stage, and it is this upper stage that is going to place Webb into orbit.
And what about the engines? What are we going to see at liftoff?
At liftoff, we first see the main Vulcan engine ignite first. We do this because we want to check it's working properly before we switch on the solid boosters 7 seconds later. Once it's done, there is no turning back. The rocket is going to lift off. And so, yeah, that's very...
I'm kind of nervous.
Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised.
I can imagine how nervous that the guys
there. For
like,
7 seconds. That's
they've been
time
working
for
on
the
this for
rocket
like 20
to actually
years.
warm up before
Cost
soaring into
$10
the sky.
billion.
So once we light the touch paper, you can count to 7 before it actually lifts off. Now, one of the advantages of the Ariane 5 vehicle is that it can be modified, and that's exactly what we've done for today's launch. We've had to make some changes for it to be able to host the Webb satellite. And joining me to talk about that is somebody who, the right person for the job indeed, because he was in charge of those changes, Daniel Deschambre from the European Space Agency. Thanks for joining us, Daniel. What did you have to do?
First, we need to recall that Webb will be the largest payload to be ever accommodated on R5. It fully occupies the volume of the fairing, with gaps as small as 10 centimeters for a diameter of 5 meters. It is the reason why we had to develop a specific integration procedure to ensure that there is no contact with them. After separation, During separation, the venting system of the launcher has been improved in order to balance as much as possible the inside and the outside pressure of the fairing. And this is due to the fear of depressurization shock, which could damage the delicate layers of Webb thermal shield. After separation, due to the fact that Webb, some equipment of Webb are very sensitive to sun exposure, the roll control of the launcher will be tuned in order to make sure that Webb is always oriented only one face to the sun. And in addition, to avoid any hot spot, the launcher will create some oscillating movements, like a barbecue mode, to avoid any overheating. And after Webb separation, there will be a specific end-of-life maneuver to be applied on the upper stage in order to put it on a liberation orbit around the sun in order to avoid collision in the long term.
Thank you very much indeed, Daniel. So we'll hopefully see the upper stage rocking in space. Not quite all the way around like the familiar barbecue, but a slightly different movement.
Really.
Listen, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for being with us today. I know that you're busy. You've got jobs to do inside the fishbowl, so I'm going to send you right back there now, and very best wishes for the launch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to watch a few videos that I sent on the chat, but this is really interesting. So maybe I should start the stream earlier.
In space, its working zone, where it's going to start telling us all about our universe. It's already started that journey because it's traveled to the launch pad from Los Angeles. After final tests were concluded in Los Angeles, Webb was packed into a special container and transported along the LA 405 freeway, which had to be closed because it's so big.
I guess we can do this.
It traveled on a special ship. A lot of spacecraft will come to the French Guiana launch site by plane, but Webb was too big for that, so it had to travel by ship, and it went through the Panama Canal. Up through the locks.
They delayed so many times the launch.
And it took 16 days
been waiting for this
to get
for
to
years.
the port in Kourou, where it was unloaded and traveled to the spaceport. That's not the real Ariane 5, that's a model. Just outside the Jupiter Control Center, actually. It was unpacked very carefully in the facilities that Raphael was talking about. And then fueling started, and of course, the teams had to wear special suits because that's a dangerous job. And then it was placed all the way on top of the Ariane 5
I'm so
rocket.
scared. Oh my god. And even the launch today is not the scariest part. The scariest part is when it has to like open up and assemble all the parts and expand everything. Today it's like the easiest
It was encapsulated
part.
inside the fairing and sealed.
And
Then
that's
it's
only gonna be
rolled
in
out
like
to the launch pad 2 days
that's
ago.
gonna be during the next 30 days.
From the
So-
vehicle assembly building to the pad along very special rails. Very, very slowly. Through the Amazon rainforest. It was
Wow.
raining at the time. And that was 2 days ago. And here we are now. 17 minutes and 46 seconds to launch.
I'm so
and
nervous, I don't know
counting.
why.
All systems are go here at the European spaceport in
This is
French
like watching
Guiana.
one of those
We have three
SpaceX
control centers on the job
streams
today.
or
We
whatever.
have
But this is
the
like
Mission Control Center here.
100
We also
times
have the
here.
Launch Control Center, which is about a mile from the pad. And then we also have the Telescope Control Center, Mission Control in Baltimore in the US, and that's where the operational teams are standing by to take over the telescope operations. Once it's released from the mothership, that will be about 27 minutes after launch.
I'm very happy at the same
They'll
time.
be controlling the Webb telescope for
It's
the
gonna
rest
be,
of
this
its
is gonna
life.
change everything. I'm telling
Very
you.
important job. The James Webb Space Telescope is a truly remarkable observatory. People have been working on it for over 2 decades. Some people have been working on it for their whole professional lives. Thomas Zurbuchen is the head of science at NASA, and he's joining me now just to talk about it. Thomas, or Dr. Z, as we can also call you. The day has come. All these decades, all this time, all these people working on the telescope, and here we are, 16 minutes and counting to launch. It's a big day, huh?
Oh, I'm so amazed, right? We have this telescope on top of this rocket, a telescope that 10,000 plus people have worked on in many ways, and together with that telescope, all the hopes and dreams of those individuals, and also tens of thousands of scientists, some of them not even born, that will benefit from these data, are there with them waiting for these last minutes of countdown.
This is
for its journey
like
to space.
I'm
almost
guessing people are feeling a combination of emotional
arrival of the
excitement.
moon moment, kind of.
What's going through people's minds, do you think?
Oh, I think there's a tremendous sense of accomplishment. Whenever you're on top of a rocket, many things went really, really well. There's tremendous pride. There's always a little bit of anxiety. We know launching is hard. We have one of the absolute best teams in the world working on this right now, so I'm confident in that. We're super excited.
Let's
an
go.
amazing day today.
And what are you most excited about, Dr. Z?
Well, I'm a scientist, so for me, besides the technology that really is a marvel, it's really the best we can do. What I'm thinking about is really looking at the universe in new light. We have never seen the universe how Webb will show it to us. And can you just imagine going back in time, 13.5 billion years? It boggles your mind, even as a professional astrophysicist. Kind of just think about all the new things we're going to learn about our
my
most
name is
beautiful
Quasar
universe.
on Twitter, you can
Dr. Z,
imagine.
thank you very, very much for joining us. And I want to wish
The
you and
passion I have
all
on
the team,
this,
everybody
the hype.
the very best for today's launch. Thank you.
Go Webb.
So, yes, indeed, go Webb. So we are now 14 minutes and 30 seconds to launch. We're getting really close now. Everything's going well. All systems are green for launch. And I'm going to hand you over now to NASA's Rob Navius in the skybox alongside the European Space Agency's Luce Fabregat, who are going to
Very
take
nice
on the
stream by
commentary from here on
NASA.
in.
Very
Over
good
to you guys,
host,
Rob.
explanations, everything. Really cool.
Well,
For
thank
the
you,
public
Katie. Merry
information.
Christmas to our worldwide
For the common
audience
people.
from our broadcast booth high atop the Jupiter Control Center here in Kourou. Joining me today for this historic launch, my colleague Luce Fabregat, the head of infrastructure and value chain for the European Space Agency. Luce, good morning.
Good
Great
morning,
to be
Rob.
with you. Great to be with you today.
Very pleased to be here with you and all of you watching us for this very special event.
Well, at this hour, countdown clocks are ticking backward.
Many
We are
French
at T-minus
accents.
13
I
minutes,
like it.
32 seconds and counting. Out on the launch pad, everything is in great shape. Don't let those clouds fool you. We are go for launch. The latest weather briefing just completed indicated that all weather parameters are green. We have a green board here in the control center, and everything has gone extremely smoothly in the countdown. About 9 minutes ago, a major milestone passed as the James Webb Space Telescope began the process and completed the process of receiving commands to transition from external power to internal battery power following the latest in the series of those weather briefings. Webb will remain on internal battery power until its singular solar array unfurls about 30 minutes after launch. Earlier, telescope controllers reported good environmental readings from sensors inside the fairing, encapsulating the
By the way,
telescope
this is not like
atop
in
the upper
Hubble.
stage
Hubble
of
is
the
very
Ariane
close to Earth,
5
and if
rocket.
something was wrong,
And
they
Luce,
could
as we
fix
enter
it
the
like
most
it
critical
happened.
phase of the countdown,
This
can
one
you
is
outline
going very far
some
from
of the
Earth,
upcoming critical activities as we
and it
head
has
into
to go
the
in one go,
phase
one shot,
called
one
synchronized
opportunity.
sequence?
Yes,
no
Rob.
mistakes.
We are now reaching the end of this
So I hope everything goes well.
11-hour sequence that we call the chronology, and that started yesterday evening. All systems here have been prepared for the final launch operations. And at the time being, it's rather quiet now inside the launch table and also inside the launcher.
Like I said, not only today, but from now to all the
that the launcher fluids
steps
and electric
the
systems are
telescopes has to
ready
go
for the
to
final
like
automated
open up
sequence.
and set
They
up
are
for.
on hold now, waiting for the last weather
That's gonna
report
take
at
like a
minus
month.
10 minutes. After this weather
So
report,
we'll be following the news on that.
3 minutes later, we will have the beginning of this famous synchronized sequence when all systems will be made ready for the liftoff. This sequence will first be run by the ground calculator, and then the onboard computer will take the lead step by step, and the launch vehicle will be made autonomous from the ground system. You know that we have 2 tanks in each cryogenic stage, upper stage and main stage. All 4 tanks are, of course, thermally insulated from the hot environment we have here in French Guiana. However, these liquid propellants are at very low temperature, and because of that, slightly evaporate. And to ensure they are perfectly loaded at liftoff, their final loading and topping up will last up to 4 minutes before the launch. So that will be the beginning of the synchronized sequence run by the ground calculators. Then we will have on the fluid side the end of the topping up, the final loading and the topping up of the different tanks. And on the electric side, we will have the onboard computer getting prepared for the launch also, and it will be uploaded with the H0, with the H0 time, the time for the liftoff, which is today at 9 at the beginning of the window, 9:20 local time, 7:20 Eastern time.
10 minutes. Oh shoot.
And Luce, we're coming up on that final weather report. We expect all systems to remain green. We'll be going down to the fishbowl to
I kind of want to play the Battlefield
from now.
The Battlefield
it's a 27-minute ride
it's really
to
fitting
orbit
now, I think.
from liftoff until the time that the Webb Observatory is separated from the upper stage of the Ariane 5 rocket. Several minutes later, the commands will be given to unfurl its solar array, followed by the confirmation from the telescope controllers in Baltimore that we are power positive, meaning that electrical current is flowing through that solar array. With us today, inside the so-called fishbowl, seated with mission controllers on the floor of the control room, is Raphael Chevrier of Arianespace. Raphael, how's everything looking? What's being discussed down there?
Hi, Rob. Well, so far, so good. We just received the last weather forecast. It's all green for the H0 that is forecast right now. What we checked was altitude winds, wind in the vicinity of the launch pad, and risk of lightning. So right now, it's a relief because the weather was a bit tough in the last couple of days. But right now, everybody is very focused on the next steps. The start of the synchronized sequence at 7 minutes before liftoff. Last operations that Luce described earlier before Webb and the Ariane 5 are going to lift off and soar into the sky.
Okay.
Thanks, Raphael. We'll be back with you and Luce here shortly. We now have confirmation from Baltimore that James Webb is on internal power. Amidst all of this activity, we cannot forget that it is Christmas Day. 53 years ago, the astronauts of Apollo 8 completed their 10th and final orbit of the moon after reading from the book of Genesis on Christmas Eve to billions of people watching with rapt attention back on our planet. The astronauts then headed for home following their spacecraft's trans-Earth injection burn. Today, more than a half-century later, we're just minutes away from another Genesis, the genesis of new era of discovery. The launch of the James Webb Space Telescope is at hand. We're just 38 seconds away from entering the critical synchronized sequence. You're going to be hearing all the critical calls from the DDO, the Range Operations Manager, who is Jean-Luc Voyer. here in the in the Mission Control Center. There he is. He will be calling the start of synchronized sequence, all of the critical countdown milestones, and we will be listening very intently for his calls. Let's stand by.
À tous de DDO. Attention pour la séquence finale lanceur.
Director of Operations. 7 minutes.
And with that, we've entered the period of synchronized sequence. You heard Luce Fabrichet just a moment or two ago explain some of the critical activities. The first one coming up just a few seconds from now.
So from the launch to
topping off
actually
of the main stage tanks. The first or core stage was loaded earlier this morning with 175 tons of propellant, 150 tons of liquid oxygen, and 25 tons of liquid hydrogen. The upper stage loaded with 15 tons of propellant. That will be the workhorse for a 16-minute burn to lift James Webb to its final orbit. At separation, some 27 minutes and 7 seconds after launch, James Webb will be at an altitude of about 864 statute miles. To put that into perspective, some 520 miles higher than the Hubble Space Telescope and more than 600 miles higher than the International Space Station. Webb at that point will be traveling about 21,000 miles an hour as it heads out to a highly elliptical, halo-like racetrack orbit some 1 million miles from Earth to begin its scientific observations.
Wow. Very good job, NASA. I like it.
More than 1 minute from now, we will see the 4 tanks pressurized
Very informative.
at flight level for the last test before the ignition of the Vulcan engine. And in parallel, the electric system are also set in flight configuration, the onboard computer. The electrical power, as for the telescope,
1 second.
it will switch from ground to internal power 1 minute before the launch, 1 minute and 5 seconds before the launch. And we are going to see -6 seconds. At -6 seconds, we will see the disconnection of the upper stage, these big cryotechnic arms you can see on this picture. Then, 3 seconds before the H0, the inertial platform that will give all the information about where it is to the launcher will be released. And at H0, the 7-second sequence to ignite the Vulcan engine of the main stage will start. That will take 7 seconds, a little less than 7 seconds, where the engine will start up to its flight regime. Once the computer has checked that the Vulcan engine is running normally, and you will see at that point a flame going stable at the outlet of the nozzle.
420.
And at that point, the onboard computer will ignite the 2 boosters that will enable to move the 770 tons of Ariane and Webb.
Coming up on the T-minus 4 minute mark right now. Just a couple of milestones real quick. At the 1 minute 5 second mark into the flight, Ariane 5 will go through the period of maximum dynamic pressure, max Q as it's known. That will be the period of maximum aerodynamic forces on the rocket itself. The solid rocket boosters, which will provide about 90% of the initial thrust off the launch pad, will shut down and separate at the 2 minute 21 second mark into the flight, followed 1 minute and 5 seconds after that by fairing jettison. That will expose the James Webb Space Telescope to the environment of flight for the first time. The main stage separation, or the first stage separation, comes at the at the 8 minute 47 second mark into the flight, and that will be about a 16-minute burn of that upper stage engine. It will cut off at about 24 minutes 51 seconds into the flight, and then we'll go into a coast phase of about 2.5 minutes
too
to
many
allow
numbers,
any oscillations to
we'll
dampen out,
we'll see.
provide the most pristine environment for the James Webb Telescope before observatory separation. We're coming up on the 2 minute 50 second mark into the flight. Again, you're going to be hearing critical calls down the stretch here from the DDO, or the Range Operations Manager, Jean-Luc Voyer.
I don't want to talk too much because everything they're saying is very interesting.
We have a green
I don't want to cut
board,
them off.
no issues
I want to
being
add
worked.
my own commentary.
NASA officials,
Like I said, there is a bunch of really good videos.
watching the telemetry
that are
Looking
really good to
intently
use.
at the final
See.
couple of minutes of the countdown, lives have been spent in the preparation of the James Webb Space Telescope that is about to fly.
Oh my God, she must be so
Everyone
nervous.
is
Everyone.
side on the left of the screen from Iron Space.
It's like, come on, guys.
And
This
that
is the moment
is
of
the
truth.
DDO, the Range
Let's go.
Operations Manager,
got
Jean-Luc
this.
Boyer, as we have hit the 2-minute mark in the countdown.
Va, gente. Oh. Ponemos el temazo de Battlefield. Yo creo que pega,
The
¿no?
flight will be in two phases. You will see the first part of the flight during the solid rocket boosters phase. That will be the atmospheric part of the flight, the atmospheric flight, and the trajectory will be driven by a to reduce the aerodynamic loads, and we will have a very different exo-atmospheric flight after that.
And you were watching a number of people, VIPs and invited guests, moving out to the observation platform.
It's coming.
Right next to the control center, as we stand by for the 1-minute call from Jean-Luc Boyer.
À tous les DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute. Top, à 0 moins 1 minute.
Thumbs up from Jean-Luc Boyer. All systems are go. We're inside a minute now. T-minus 50 seconds and counting. As you heard earlier, the Vulcan 2 engine will ignite. Turbo pumps will come up to flight speed for 7 seconds, and the command will be issued to ignite the solid rocket boosters. The James Webb Space Telescope will be on its way. T-minus 30 seconds and counting. Standing by for terminal count.
À tous les DDO, attention pour les décomptes finales. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, top.
And we have engine start. And liftoff.
UAP, décollage.
Decollage, liftoff from a tropical rainforest to the edge of time itself. James Webb begins a voyage back to the birth of the universe. Punching a hole through the clouds, 20 seconds into the flight. Good pitch program reported.
Trajectoire est nominale.
Vehicle performance is nominal. The Ariane 5 rocket continues to fly uphill in nominal fashion. The rumble of the powerful Ariane 5 now being felt here in the control center. 3D animation.
We can hear the noise and feel the vibrations here. You're right, Rob. Yeah, impressive.
13 kilometers in altitude, 7 kilometers downrange, traveling about 0.6 kilometers per second.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
The trajectory reported to be nominal by Jean-Luc Boyer, the range reported to be nominal by Jean-Luc Boyer, the range operations manager. You can see at the bottom of your screen, the yellow line is the trajectory plot, perfectly overlaid over the green line, which was the pre-launch trajectory.
Ahora no sirva.
1 minute 41
Bueno, eso ha sido
seconds
el
into the flight,
yikes, the
about
biggest
40 seconds
yikes of
away
my life.
from
My
shutdown of the solid rocket
electricity
boosters.
cut off 1 minute before the launch. I was like panicking. I was like, what the fuck? It's raining really hard in my
Coming up on
town,
the 2-minute
and
mark into the
electricity just boop, 1 minute before launch. Yikes! Well, we're here, guys. We're back. Nice.
When it detects the threshold on acceleration, not the deceleration, but less acceleration.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Everything is okay. Everything is normal.
2 minutes 15 seconds into the flight.
When the computer detects this threshold, it will separate.
Oh, bye-bye.
Séparation des EAP.
Done.
We have confirmation of solid rocket booster separation from Jean-Luc Boyer. This coming at an altitude of 44 miles. The
So this is
Ariane
like a
5 and James
3D
Webb traveling almost
representation.
5,000 miles an hour.
We're gonna take
We
this
have about
off.
1 minute 5 seconds to go before fairing jettison. That'll be the next critical milestone.
Oh my god, big jikes, big jikes.
The
Holy
fairing
shit.
is there to
The
avoid
worst
the
moment
satellite
for
being exposed to
power
high
cutoff.
temperatures
Oh,
and
fuck.
also high airflows. And as soon as the launcher leaves the atmosphere, as is now the case, the satellite does not need anymore to be protected, and Webb does not need anymore to be protected. So each kilogram being very important for the performance of the launch, we are going to eject this no more useful fairing.
And let's go down to the floor in the Jupiter Control Center to Raphael Chevrier of Arianespace. Raphael, so far so good.
Okay.
Hi, Rob. So far, so good. Everything is nominal, as we say when attitude and trajectory of the Ariane 5 is going perfectly well. As you can see also on the yellow line on the screen, we had the confirmation of the separation of the two solid boosters and now of the fairing, meaning that we have crossed the limits of the atmosphere. So everything is going super good. And the DDO just said that all parameters are going perfectly smoothly. So let's continue the mission.
And Raphael, this is a view from the upper stage camera called the Vicky Cam, looking back at the James Webb Space Telescope. This is on about a 20-second delay or so because of the way the imagery is processed here in the control room. There's your telescope ready to unfurl its wings, basically, and begin its journey to the Lagrange point, the L2 point, about 1 million miles away from Earth.
La trajectoire est nominale.
Trajectory is nominal. The report from Jean-Luc Voyer. The liftoff time confirmed here in the Mission Control Center at 12:20 Greenwich Mean Time, 9:20 a.m. Peru time, 7:20 a.m. Eastern Time. The Ariane 5 and James Webb, 181 kilometers in altitude, 450 kilometers downrange from the launch site here in Kourou.
Flight control is very smooth.
5 minutes, 12 seconds into the flight. We have about 3.5 minutes to go in main stage or first stage performance. And again, you can see at the bottom of your screen the yellow plot line overlaid over the green line, meaning we are right on course, right down the pike, and a perfect trajectory so far for the Ariane 5.
Thank you, Einstein.
All telemetry data are now received by the Galileo tracking station, which is close to here, where we are.
What is that?
In Kourou.
I have no idea.
It will track the launcher up to the ignition of its upper stage. And then we'll have the natal station in Brazil, Ascension in as you can see on the map, in the middle of the ocean, and the two last
I rarely
stations
get nervous by anything
Libreville
or
and
excited,
Malindi, one on the east coast, the other one on the west coast. And the one on the west coast, Malindi,
this is a real deal.
You can see that the telescope will be separated more or less over this Malindi station. And this Malindi station will also acquire the telemetry data from the telescope. You can see both are green, Galileo and Natal on this animation. It means they are expected to receive the data, and it was confirmed right now by the launch operations manager.
Acquisition de la télémesure.
Let's go.
La station du Natal au Brésil.
Everything is going fine.
Now the telemetry is being processed through the Brazilian tracking station. The telescope is also processing telemetry through the tracking and data relay satellite system. As it moves further and further out into deep space, all of the telescope's telemetry and its imagery
if I was that guy, my heart
will be
would be
processed
like
through the Deep
pumping
Space
so hard
Network in
like.
Goldstone, California. We passed the 7-minute mark into
He's
the flight.
very professional. He's like
Perfect
keeping it
ride so far on the Ariane 5. We have about 1.5 minutes to go in the first stage performance. Once the main stage engine is commanded to cut off, it will be jettisoned, and just a few seconds after that, the upper stage engine will ignite, and it will be the workhorse for a 16-minute burn that will put James Webb into its preliminary orbit.
Okay. So part of that rocket is gonna separate, and then the other booster from the remaining part is gonna...
About 11 minutes from now, telescope controllers
launch
at
it into
the
the real
Space Telescope
spot,
Science Institute will be sending
Bro,
commands to
that thing
prepare
is...
James Webb for the initial series
I'm
of
so scared,
commissioning
man.
activities that will lead to the deployment
I hope
of
it
its
unfolds
solar array and the
perfectly.
initiation of generation of electrical power for the telescope. About 30 seconds away from main engine cutoff.
Okay. And the string is so good. Like,
nominal
I mean, they could
trajectory
make it
continues,
1080,
to
honestly.
be the watchword for the day from the Range Operations Manager, Jean-Luc Voyer, as we stand by for main engine shutdown and separation.
The commentary is really, really, really fucking good. Like, damn. Oh, there you go.
Extinction de l'EPC.
Power.
And we have main
So it's
stage
going like
shutdown and
this, and then
separation
it's going
confirmed
like
here in the
this.
Mission Control Center, and the ignition of that upper
Allumage
stage.
PSC.
And Raphael Chevrier down in the fishbowl. So far, so good.
Yes, Rob, we have the confirmation of the separation of the main stage and the ignition of the upper stage. The trajectory is perfectly nominal. This is a very important moment for us because it's always a challenge to switch on a cryogenic engine in space condition, and we are now at 220 kilometers of altitude. Speed is a bit
It's going
more
down.
than
You see the
7
altitude
kilometers
going
per
down?
second. As we enter now the second stage of the second phase of the flight.
I wonder
The upper
if
stage
this
is going to
explodes
power
right now, like, what will the
about
3D
16
animation
minutes
do?
to place
Because
Webb on
it's
its transfer
pre-recorded
orbit,
stuff,
and
right?
now everything is again nominal.
What will be the reaction? Like, we just got the information,
And
the
a short
telemetry
time from
information
now,
that fucking
the
rocket
so-called
just blew up.
sawtooth maneuver will get underway. Again, like rocking a baby in a cradle, this will be a maneuver to keep Webb's optics protected from overheating, Luce.
Oh.
Exactly, Rob. Like a baby in a cradle.
Yeah, like...
you can see here Webb attached on top of Ariane 5 upper stage with a very specific configuration. Of course, it will be different during its lifetime, but for the time being, its sun shield is folded and not yet fully protecting the observatory. A number of exhaustive studies have been performed by the mission teams in Europe, in the US, on the thermal conditioning inside the telescope,
I don't know if you guys can see,
and the way the rays of the sun would propagate and interact with sensitive equipment inside the telescope. Maintain this thermal conditioning is really key before separating this telescope. And in particular, we know that one face of the telescope cannot face the sun. That's why and to produce these right thermal conditions inside Webb, a specific roll law has been designed, what we call the sawtooth approach. And if you are watching carefully to these images, you can see this animation. You can see that the upper stage is going 30 degrees on one side, then 30 degrees on the other side, going back and forth this way to maintain this perfect thermal conditioning for the telescope.
It's worthwhile noting that after Webb separates from the upper stage
These guys are the
of
biggest
the
brain
Ariane
on
5
Earth.
rocket, which continues to perform in excellent fashion coming up on the 12-minute mark into the flight, the telescope controllers will be taking the baton, if you will, from the mission controllers here in Kourou. The first steps will be the opening of fuel valves, a pair of fuel valves, to start flowing fuel to Webb's onboard thrusters. They then will power on the valve drive electronics. Those are powered on in preparation to control and fire those thrusters when required. Webb's solar array is scheduled to be deployed at approximately the 33-minute mark into the flight. Once it is locked in place, we'll get the call that electricity is flowing through the array. That call will come from the Mission Operations Manager, Carl Starr, who's at the Space Telescope Science Institute at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. Seated right behind him in that control room is Alicia Starr, a pair of stars helping to guide James Webb on its discovery of the stars. Alicia Starr is the lead engineer for launch and ascent events. Once the solar array is deployed and declared power positive, then 3 out of the 4 hold downs for the aft deployed radiator will be released to prevent binding due to the cool down of the telescope's composite structure. The contamination control heaters will be enabled to protect instrument optics on Webb from any water ice condensation as they cool down. The actuator drive unit will be powered on. This particular mechanism helps with heater control of the fine steering mirror, preventing water ice condensation, later to be used to position each of the mirror's segments. All 6 reaction wheels and the wheel drive electronics will be powered on for Webb, and that will be the precursor to the attitude control system using those reaction wheels to maintain the proper orientation with the sun, as opposed to using onboard thrusters. Of course, fuel in those thrusters, very valuable. It's a limited commodity for the lifetime of James Webb's observations of the universe.
Yep.
We're 13 minutes, 55 seconds into the flight.
There's no refueling on this, so the lifetime
the
is the
range
lifetime.
operations manager continues to report a nominal performance for James
Expected
Webb.
to be around 10 years, I think.
And again,
it's going to go up
from
again.
the European Space Agency, how is this trajectory being carefully and methodically adjusted to provide the correct parameters in the final stages of ascent?
Yes, Rob, as you can see on this plot, the altitude is slightly going down. It's perfectly normal. The launch vehicle is really on the line where it should be. This decrease of its altitude, slight decrease of its altitude, will allow the launcher to benefit and the upper stage to benefit of the gravity effect, and to increase its velocity until it reaches a thermal threshold. It's about to reach it, or even already reached it now, and it will go up. And now it will go up and
so it does like it helps to get speed.
Of the Webb telescope.
Yes, I see.
It will separate the Webb telescope on a highly elliptic orbit, but still around the Earth. The telescope will be released, inserted on an orbit around the Earth, with an apogee, a very high apogee above 1 million kilometers.
Trajectory nominal is reported by Jean-Luc Voyer. You see him in that view, 185 kilometers in altitude, some 4,500 kilometers downrange from the launch site here in Kourou, moving at more than 8 kilometers per second, right on the plot, right on the trajectory, everything looking great. We are about 9 minutes away from the completion of upper stage ignition. It's shut down, and then about a 2.5-minute coast phase before Webb will separate. Observatory separation will be called out. You'll be hearing those calls and the initial calls from Carl Starr, the mission operations manager at the Space Telescope Science Institute at Johns Hopkins, through solar array deploy and the declaration of a power-positive spacecraft. James Webb, of course, will be traveling well beyond the moon to a distance of about 1 million miles away from Earth, settling into a highly elliptical, halo-like orbit to begin its astronomical observations.
Halo?
And again, as we mentioned earlier, at the time of observatory separation, Webb will be at an altitude of approximately 864 miles, statute miles, traveling some 21,000
That's the biggest
miles
fail of my life.
an hour.
I mean, it's not even my fault. But yeah. I hope it doesn't happen again. Holy shit.
We're about 8 minutes away from upper stage shutdown. The stage has performed as planned.
Okay.
No issues reported. The launch occurring at 12:20 Greenwich Mean Time, 9:20 Kourou time, 7:20 a.m. Eastern Time on this Christmas Day.
Very smooth. The velocity you just mentioned is very important, Rob. The velocity you just mentioned at separation of the telescope is very important. It will be slightly below, okay, I give it in kilometers per second, but it will be slightly below 10 kilometers per second, because it's important that the satellite, the telescope, is not inserted on an escape orbit. It will be placed on a terrestrial orbit so that there will be time for the layout, for the early phase operations on and the commissioning of the telescope. And that will be, in fact, the upper stage that will leave this orbit and goes toward an escape liberation orbit.
And of course, even though we're still in powered flight, the trajectory, the acceleration, the speed at which James Webb is going towards its preliminary orbit, all modeled in advance and carefully choreographed to maintain as quiescent an atmosphere and environment around the telescope for its ultimate separation from the upper stage of the Ariane 5 rocket, which is about 6.5 minutes from now.
Okay.
Eighteen and a half minutes into the flight. It's very quiet now here in the control center here in Kourou. NASA officials, European Space Agency officials, Arianespace officials, all watching telemetry very carefully. And as the upper stage continues to burn nominally and sheds fuel, the acceleration uphill for the James Webb Space Telescope continues to increase as we approach the 20-minute mark into the flight. Again, upper stage cutoff is scheduled at the 24-minute, 51-second mark into the flight, about 5.5 minutes from now.
Okay.
After the cutoff of this main engine, as you said, Rob, we will have a short ballistic phase, a short coasting phase that will, when the upper stage will rely fully on its what we call the attitude and roll control system, and it will adjust its attitude so that during this small ballistic phase, all the requirements from the telescope are fully met. And that at the separation, when there will be the separation, the conditions will be very smooth and as requested for the telescope. Beginning of life.
Today's countdown was as flawless as you can imagine. The weather was
perfect. I want to see the replay.
Morning hours. Through the fueling process of the vehicle. The weather's been a bit dicey here in Kourou over the past few days.
Hey, after the 24 minutes, we're going to watch the replay of the launch because I missed
present
it.
to the world's astronomer.
I was like 1 minute away, and then when I went live again, it was like 1 minute after launch. My luck.
All parameters nominal as reported by Jean-Luc Voyer, the range operations manager. 4 minutes of powered flight remaining.
Quiet, but so tense. Altitude 450 kilometers. Thank you for using international system metrics, by the way. Fucking American. I'm just joking. But I think most people understand better.
The telemetry of the launch vehicle is acquired for the time being by the Libreville tracking station on the western coast of Africa. Flight control is nominal. The trajectory is fully normal, fully as expected, as you can see on the plot with the yellow plot over the green one. That is the expected one.
Yo, it's
22 minutes into the flight.
It's going so fast.
Less than 3 minutes.
2
of power
kilometers
flight
per second.
Smooth flight
Imagine
control.
that. It's going so fast. Bye bye, Earth. It's losing gravity.
And again, as we've mentioned before,
that's how high the hollow
everything
is.
nominal reported by the range operations manager. As we've mentioned before, this is a long ride uphill for the James Webb Space Telescope to put it at the proper position in the sky so that it can escape from the Earth, basically head beyond the moon towards its final orbit for its commissioning activities that will be the dominant feature of all of the operations from the Space Telescope Science Institute over the course of the next several weeks.
And the launch operations manager announced the acquisition by the Malindi station, as expected, for the end of the flight and the last part of the upper stage flight and the separation of the telescope.
James Webb is about 4 minutes away from separating from the upper stage. And again, at that point, it will be on its own. And again, those milestones that we discussed a bit earlier in the broadcast will begin to be followed carefully by the telescope controllers at the Mission Operations Center, the MOC as it's called, at the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore.
Man, Baltimore, be good, please. Such bad jokes. Okay, he said 2450, right?
Remaining.
2451, he said, right?
The upper stage continues to function perfectly. It's been a smooth ride for the James Webb Space Telescope.
Nice. Like I said, this is not even the most difficult part of the whole having the telescope functional. This is the easiest part. The hard part is when it has to unfold.
Was loaded pre-flight this morning with 15 tons of propellant for this long 16-minute burn. Now about 30 seconds away from upper stage cutoff.
Okay. Bro. 800 kilometers. 900. So the woman said when the B-test thingy reaches 10, it means it's lost completely
the cutoff of the upper stage engine.
Oh, there you go. He just escapes Earth gravity or something, I think.
The extinction of the shut-off of the cut-off of the engine was confirmed exactly as expected, with the exactly expected altitude and speed and velocity. So now we have entered the coasting phase, the ballistic phase, that will last for a little more than 2 minutes.
Ballistic phase. That doesn't sound very good. It sounds like that whole thing is gonna.
And the telescope controllers in Baltimore confirming that all of the function parameters for the James Webb Space Telescope have been loaded on board the telescope. We are expecting Webb separation at the 27-minute 7-second mark here into the flight.
Like I said, imagine everything blows up.
Just over a minute from now,
how will they know?
Gently
At
push
what moment?
away
And
from
what
the
will be
upper
the
stage
reaction?
of the Ariane 5.
I don't want that to happen.
As it moves further and further away from the upper stage, there'll be what we refer to as a collision avoidance maneuver.
Yes, Rob, exactly. The springs already will give some distancing, of course, between the two objects, between the telescope and the upper stage. And then the upper stage will leave the trajectory of the telescope and makes a special maneuver to pass the telescope and heads towards a liberation orbit and leaves the telescope on its orbit without any risk of collision and without any risk of pollution towards the telescope.
And we're about 17 seconds away from Webb separation.
It's coming! Please. I mean, the animation is already made. It's like, whatever. But it's cool to see. Oh my god!
séparation Webb Space Telescope. Go Webb!
Woo! Let's go!
We do have confirmation of observatory separation. The James Webb Space Telescope, amidst applause here in the Mission Control Center, now taking its first steps in pursuit of cosmological discovery. It was a perfect ride to orbit. And all of the separation sequence events are running in good fashion according to the telescope controllers.
Oh my.
And there is the view from the upper stage camera on the Ariane 5 looking at the James Webb Space Telescope as it moves gently away from its launch vehicle.
Bro, that's so cool.
Fantastic pictures of this telescope.
Go Webb, go Webb.
Beautiful.
Yes, go Webb.
Go Webb, whoa.
Ironically enough, as we marvel on this view from the upper stage camera, this will be humanity's last view of the James Webb Space Telescope as it moves to its workplace about 1 million miles away from Earth.
Yes, you're right, Rob. Impressive.
Streaming from space.
Yeah.
Now we'll be hearing shortly from the Mission Operations Manager at the Space Telescope Science Institute, Carl Starr, who will be calling out the procedures that will lead to the deployment of Webb's solar array.
It's crazy how fast these two things are going and how slow they're separating, kind of, right? What the hell is that?
And down in the fishbowl where there is jubilation, let's go to Raphael Chevrier of Arianespace.
Is that like a solar panel?
And before we
Maybe
do
they
that,
explain. I'm not
Raphael,
listening. I'm sorry, I'm
a
Pepega.
bit earlier than planned, but there is the solar array having been deployed.
Solar array.
James Webb now has its array out.
Okay.
As we stand by for a confirmation that it is power positive.
Please.
Hey, Rob.
Come on. Confirmation, please.
J'entends pas ce qu'il me dit. Il m'a appelé ou pas? Il m'a appelé ou pas, Rob?
Non, il t'a pas appelé.
What?
And there it is. There's your critical call. James Webb not only has legs, but it has power as it begins its journey and the commissioning activities to follow. And with that, let's go down to the floor in the fishbowl and Raphael Chevrier of Arianespace.
This is it. We have witnessed and the confirmation that Ariane 5 have safely delivered Webb into space. The upper stage is now being placed on a safe escape orbit around the sun, but honestly, I've got to tell you that these images are absolutely incredible.
Yeah, well, what about this solar array? Is it okay?
The mission for Arianespace, but it's only the beginning.
I'm hearing too many voices.
Webb, it's now on its
What's
way
happening?
to the Lagrange point. Congratulations to all the team involved in the flight. Really, there is no words to describe the immersion that is happening right now in the fishbowl. So,
is anything wrong?
All I can say is good luck, Webb, and bring us
incredible
data from the deep universe.
At that point, our sequence will continue.
Well, Raphael, congratulations on a perfect ride to orbit from the Ariane 5 out of Kourou here today. A view here in the Space Telescope Science Institute. Their work
nice
just
shirt,
beginning
bro.
On a new era of scientific observations. Luce Fabregat, it was a smooth ride to orbit. Everything went by the book, almost like a simulation, without any problems. And we thank you for all of your insight throughout the course of the day.
Thanks to you, Rob, and really a great achievement. I have many faces and names now coming up to my mind, and really you can be proud of what was achieved on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. Thanks a lot to you.
Aww.
Tremendous jubilation here in the control center. You're looking at Jean-Luc Voyer, the range operations manager. Quite a Christmas present for the world's astronomers as the James Webb Space Telescope begins its life heading towards deep space.
Okay.
With that, we're going to go back to the floor now to Katie Haswell. Katie, we did our thing. It's up to you now.
Oh my goodness, I just can't tell you. It's such utter jubilation here on the floor in the Jupiter Control Center.
This one is so
Everybody's
lovely.
whooping with joy. The controllers here and the mission controllers jumping up, clapping, whooping with joy, people hugging. And I have to say, my throat was caught as I saw the glimpse of sunshine on Webb solar panels as we watched it heading out into space on its journey to its working zone. It's going to take about 6 months before we start getting our deep space observations from Webb. Of course, the teams have got a huge amount to do before we get to that, and our best wishes with all those teams in Baltimore. I want to get some reaction. Right now, everybody is talking and hugging each other because they're feeling so excited, and I totally understand.
Finally!
Let's start, though, by going over
we can say the James Webb Telescope is actually in space.
Bill
Like,
Nelson.
it's crazy to say. Let's go! I don't know if there's gonna be anything else. Let's watch for a bit. I'm planning on watching like what can it discover, what it's gonna observe, how does it work, blah blah, all that stuff. Because yeah, the launch is cool, but the what is it about is the actual instrument. What is it for?
Administrator Bill Nelson right now.
So we're gonna be watching one or two videos about that. Let's see what we do. I'm gonna watch them fast because they're kind of long.
Spaceport in South America. There are the teams. The mission controllers have done a fantastic job. It was an utterly flawless launch.
Flawless launch. Let's go.
The European spaceport here on the equator in the Amazon rainforest. Hoping to go over now to NASA Administrator Bill Nelson to get some reaction from him.
All stations, 7.5 minutes.
Oh, it's Bill!
Sequence continues with our
is that Bill?
ADIR release part 1 and our TCS configurations.
No, sure. Whew. Okay, everything is fine, guys. We did it. Kappa.
GSC on off, filling the JW6 config.
Oh, I like the mask. Look at the mask of that guy with the mirrors. I'm so hungry, by the way. Holy shit. I had a really good dinner yesterday with my family. I hope you guys did too. Should we keep watching? Are they gonna show anything else about what is happening to the telescope? Is it cool? They said it was gonna go like towards the moon, right? And then past the moon. So I'm not sure if they're gonna use the moon as like a slingshot. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep this stream here. Let's do like, you know what? Let me do something. Did you see? There's a telescope, guys. It's good. So we're gonna watch a few videos. For example, I have this one. This telescope will look further into the universe than ever before. So we're gonna be watching this. I will have the stream next to it in case they show anything. Well, let me see.
The mission controllers, the telescope mission controllers in Baltimore, following those incredibly important first actions.
Okay, let's watch this video. It's 7 minutes. That's good.
2 unités top. Allumage votre
Next week, an Ariane 5 rocket will scream skyward from the coast of French Guiana. On board, an exceedingly delicate $10 billion instrument that is only half jokingly referred to as a time machine. For the last 2 decades, a slew of experts at NASA, Northrop Grumman,
Vice
and
News.
beyond have been modeling, building,
This video is
folding,
from yesterday,
testing, shaking, and refining the innumerable components that make up this precision tool.
Coming back down.
Before its launch, Vice News was given an up-close look.
It's really mind-blowing.
So tell me, how long have you been working on this?
So, well, there's 2 answers. Full-time, about 18 years.
Wow,
Holy
okay.
shit.
It's pretty much been about over half of my career.
This specific telescope?
This exact project, yep. So this is our...
I did not expect it to be this big. What is that? Can you explain, like, to a person who doesn't know what it is, like, what is it?
What you're looking at is the James Webb Space Telescope, NASA's largest space mission for astronomy that it's ever flown. And we are on the cusp of taking it down to the launch site and launching it this year. James Webb Space Telescope is a 6.5 meter primary mirror telescope, which is the successor to the Hubble Space Telescope.
The Webb will be orders of magnitude more powerful than its older sibling Hubble. But first, it has a long journey ahead of it. After it exits Earth's atmosphere, it'll fly past the moon and at 1 million miles away, park itself at what is called L2, one of 5 points that are gravitationally stable between the sun and the Earth. Once there, it springs into action.
And once it gets on orbit, it pretty much has to transform itself. It's almost like a transformer. It's going to robotically unfurl itself. We're going to command it from the ground. We're going to say, hey, do this. But it pretty much has to get itself in its configuration to actually do science.
One of the most critical parts of that transformation is the unfurling of the telescope's tennis court-sized sunshield to keep the telescope very, very cold.
As a cryogenic telescope, it has to be very, very cold. So almost everything you're looking at in there, the gold mirrors, the instruments, they will all run almost at 30 Kelvin. You're talking about minus 400 degrees Fahrenheit.
The reason it has to stay so cold is because this telescope sees everything in infrared, which means any heat could throw off its reading as it looks deep into the origins of the universe.
Because it's an infrared telescope, that's one of the reasons we have to be cold, is to be able to see that first light from those first stars, because it's just been stretched. The wavelengths have been expanded into the infrared now. So we would never see it with something like Hubble anyway. Even if Hubble were larger, it's just not cold enough to see it.
Dr. Begonia Vila is a systems engineer that's been working on the Webb telescope for the last 15 years.
What does it mean that this telescope can see back in time?
If you look when the universe was first formed, we have that Big Bang.
Is she Spanish?
We have a period that was very hot, and then when it cooled down enough, the first objects, the first planets, stars, galaxies started to form, and they emitted light. And that light has been traveling for 13.5 billion years across the space. The universe is expanding, so that means that light goes to longer and longer wavelengths. So if you want to detect that light that's there, you have to take a picture at that wavelength. That's what James Webb is going to be able to do. You look on the infrared, and the light that you picked up is from those very first objects. So that's when we say we can look back in time, we are able to see that light for the first formation.
That's because the light from billions of years ago has stretched into longer and longer wavelengths as the universe expanded. The Webb is specifically designed to see these early remnants of the cosmos better than any telescope before.
What are you most excited about seeing?
We know the galaxy where
Quasars.
we know how it
Of course.
looks like. We already know the first galaxies were not like that. We know the first stars that were formed in the universe were huge stars that exploded and generated the material that made us. But James Webb is also looking at our search for, are we alone in the universe, right? We know now that there are planets around other stars. A few years ago, we didn't know that. Now we know. But now we want to advance that a little bit, see the atmosphere of those planets, and see if they have what we think is needed for life, water. carbon dioxide, nitrogen.
Once the Webb completes the month-long journey to its new home in space, it'll take 5 months for it to start capturing images of the universe's farthest reaches. For scientists lining up to get their turn with the new telescope, anticipation is running high.
I feel we are looking at the universe with eyes that we haven't used before. So I think we are going to see things that we are not expecting.
Yep. Same. This is gonna sound very ignorant because I'm not very an expert on the matter, but I think the age of the universe we consider today is gonna be even older. We'll see. One of my predictions. Let's see if it's
Why does that matter
not,
to the
so.
regular person living on Earth?
Let's
who's
see.
not thinking...
Imagine you see an object like 15 or 20 billions light years away.
About what's out there. Why does it matter, these discoveries that this telescope can potentially make?
I always think we humans are explorers. We want to understand where we are. We want to understand how we got here. And I think it is very important to continue answering our curiosity. That's how we have evolved throughout. So I think James Webb, our knowledge of the universe is good to continue doing that and learn what we can.
Before coming here, I perused the internet to see what people really wanted to know about this telescope. And the number one question is, will this telescope allow us potentially to see if there's other forms of life out there?
I think looking for other forms of life, we want to do it. I think James Webb gives us a little bit more information, right? First, we didn't know if there were other planets. Now we know there are. Maybe the first planets that were discovered because of the way we discover them, which is the planet goes in front of the star, the light dims a little bit, so we know there is a planet. The first ones were bigger planets, so a Jupiter, a Saturn, and we said, oh great, there is a planet, but I don't think there is life in those. Now we have planets in what we think is the good zone.
That's the thing.
And now we want to see what is their atmosphere made of. So we know what we have on the Earth. So I think it advances our search. You know, we are going in the right direction.
Can I just remove this shit? Hey, that was a very good video. Like I said, there's many very good informative videos about this. Let's see.
So Merry Christmas to everyone. And
back to the stream.
A Christmas gift today to humanity, to people, to NASA, but also to all the people in this world. Because with this James Webb Space Telescope, we are really enabling new science, new excitement, but also really rewarding all the engineering and all the effort that has gone into it. And I'm really grateful for this success. We have delivered a mission into space. It's power positive, everything is nominal, and I'm very grateful to Arianespace and all our partners for all this work. Stefan Israel has already thanked all our partners, but let me also just very briefly recall that this was really a team effort. It was a team effort of the European team. We call it the Team Europe.
This is what humanity can reach
providing the launcher with,
when working together.
With CNES,
Let's
with
go.
Ariane Group, with all our partners which we have to make this possible. And I really would like to spend a minute to thank all the people involved in this.
You should be more stuff like this.
Some of them are here, have been spent weeks here in French Guiana or at the sites where they have been working. It's a special moment. I know you have made sacrifices, but it's a special moment, and really thank you from my heart. But also thank you, NASA. Bill Nelson was speaking before. Thomas Zurbuchen is here with his team. Fantastic cooperation, and this cooperation between NASA and European team is really exemplary. And a big thank you, Thomas, and your people for what you have done together with us, that you have entrusted this precious spacecraft to us, which we could deliver. And I'm so happy today, I can tell you, this is a very special moment. It's very nerve-wracking. I couldn't do launches every single day. This would not be good for my life expectancy. But I can tell you this was very exciting, very nerve-wracking, but really very successful. And thank you from my side. And congratulations, NASA. Congratulations, science community. Big science is to come, and really happy. Thank you from my side.
Woo! Let's go!
So the president of the CNES, which is the French space agency, is Philippe Baptiste, and he joins us now. Philippe.
Thank you very much. Well, as everybody here in the room, I'm very, very happy to see that everything
I think they're
fine,
gonna all
everything
kind of
is nominal.
say similar stuff.
Great news for NASA, for ESA, for all of us. I just want to thank all the people who have been working over the last 20 years on this incredible instrument,
Let's watch this now.
telescope, but also people who have been working on the launch. I'm thinking especially on the 500 people who have been working yesterday during Christmas Eve to prepare the launch, to prepare the successful launch, and I really want to thank them very much. People from CNES, from ESA, from NASA, from Arianespace, and from all the partners who are around. I also want to give a special thank to the French Armed Force of Guyana who make.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you. Blah blah blah. Let's watch another video. This one. Boom.
Every new telescope put up in space has always found something they didn't expect. Something new.
There you go. Yeah, let's see
The James Webb Space Telescope is the biggest, most complex telescope that NASA has ever launched into space.
Telescope's a time machine.
These videos from
Webb will push us back into the realm of the
Quantum
very
Magazine.
first stars and galaxies in the universe.
3rd of December this year.
The Webb telescope is designed to see as far back in time as we can possibly see luminous objects, when the universe was maybe 100 million years old.
We have a suite of very powerful instruments to study the atmospheres of planets. Webb will be very helpful to us in the search for life in the future.
How long is this video? 14 minutes. Let's do let's do a little bit speed.
Up until Hubble flew, we were using telescopes on the ground and they couldn't see very far.
Fast listening.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff of the Hubble Space Telescope, our window on the universe.
When Hubble flew, we knew that it was going to be able to reach out further into the universe, but we didn't really have any idea what was out there.
Bro.
The Hubble Deep Field image was a discovery image of the 90s. What was unique about this was the idea of spending days and days of valuable Hubble time staring at a tiny spot in the sky where there was nothing. When we did a deep image like this, astronomers suddenly saw that there was a richness of galaxies in there, thousands and thousands of galaxies we'd never seen before. Basically a history of the whole universe in one image. The universe is 13,800 million years old. Light travels very rapidly, but the distances are so huge.
Hubble can see the visible and ultraviolet with a little schmids in the infrared. But the things that we want to see now, the first stars that turned on in the universe, or the first galaxies, they were probably very bright objects that emitted a lot of ultraviolet light. But that ultraviolet light, with a very short wavelength, as it traverses through a universe that's been expanding for about 13.5 billion years, gets stretched out. So that by the time it reaches us, it's no longer ultraviolet, it's infrared.
After they had the Hubble Deep Field, they said, we can't see far enough. So we need a bigger telescope that's more sensitive and that can look at longer infrared wavelengths so that we can see the more distant universe.
About 13.7 billion years ago, there were no stars in the universe. There was just gas and dark matter. We'd gone through 200 million years of dark ages. Suddenly, the first stars and galaxies would start popping up all over the place. Cosmic sunrise. And so that's what JWST is for, mapping the first billion years of galaxy formation and growth in the universe.
The Webb telescope is the first general-purpose, powerful infrared telescope we've ever had. It opens up what I call the infrared treasure chest. If you were a bumblebee at the distance of the moon away from the telescope, we would be able to pick up the heat that you send out.
Wow.
Infrared is special for astronomers because cooler objects that cannot emit visible light are able to emit infrared.
When we look at the universe, you see there's lots of sort of dusty, dark areas. But one of the great things about the infrared is light can travel through the dust. The dust becomes almost transparent. So if we're trying to
There is
see
a-
how
there
stars
is a
and planets form in
Cosmos
their early
episode,
times, the infrared is the place to be.
Very good for understanding this.
If you want to see dim stars, you don't stay in the city, you go out to the country, right? You get away from the lights. We want to see the dimmest galaxies there are to see. Well, the Earth is pretty bright in the infrared, so you want to get away from the Earth, you want to get away from the moon.
Webb needed to be far away from Earth, and it needed to be
Look at that
very
shit,
cold
bro.
if it's going to work in the infrared.
Sexy.
So if you cool the whole telescope down near the temperature of space, then you can see out with incredible clarity over the first billion years of the universe.
So we're going to a point called the Sun-Earth L2 point. It's 1 million miles away from the Earth on the opposite side of the Sun. And it's a place where the gravity of the Sun and the gravity of the Earth combine to make a relatively stable point that follows the Earth around the Sun every 365 days. So if we go out there and we put up a sun shield, a big umbrella,
It's
from
going
that
like
location
this.
we can block out the Sun, the Earth, and the Moon at the same
It's
time.
crazy.
This is obviously no ordinary umbrella. The 5 individual layers are made of a almost plastic-like material called kapton. 200,000 watts of solar radiation strikes the hot side, and the sun shield will only allow about 0.02 watts to get through. If it were suntan lotion, it would have a solar protection factor of about 10 million. So the telescope and the instruments
shit.
are exposed to cold space.
The Webb telescope is the most difficult scientific project we've ever undertaken. It's got to unfold itself in space.
James Webb is obviously not going to fit on the top of a rocket, so something that's that big has to be folded. A consequence of this folding up is that we have to be able to do the deployment in orbit.
Oh, shit.
Once we're above the atmosphere, the fairing drops away, and James Webb is then sitting alone on top of the rocket, shooting towards the moon and out to its final orbit.
Well, we just saw this.
The solar panels have
We
to
just
come
saw
out very
that.
quickly to power it. Over the next 29 days, there's a whole sequence of activities that happen. The very large sun shield has to be pulled out.
This
and
is
be
really
set
cool.
to
Look,
have
I'm gonna
power.
go back a little bit because on
Over
the
the next-
top you can see day, hour, minute, right? So this is the time after the launch. So from in 20 hours from now. And on the bottom, by the way, you can see the orbit from Earth and Moon. So in around 20 hours is gonna be getting closer to the moon. And watch closely. We're gonna actually watch this in slow motion.
29 days is a whole sequence.
So it's gonna be unfolding day by day. It's gonna take days to unfold and keep traveling. Look, now 3 days later, it's just past the moon, as you can see on the bottom left. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Of activities that happen. The very large sun shield has
So
to be
every
pulled
day,
out and be
something
separated,
critical
and
is gonna
that is
happen.
an
Like
amazing,
now we need to
intricate
unfold this.
series
Now
of
we need to
steps.
unfold that. Now this has to move. Now this has.
Unlike Hubble, we are not
Sorry, what did you say?
And be separated, and that is an amazingly intricate series of steps.
Yeah. We're gonna watch normal.
Unlike
speed.
Hubble, we are not orbiting the Earth. We're going straight out 1 million miles where no man has gone before.
Well, I'm not gonna say it.
So servicing
Maybe he
is not
says-
an option for us. All the release mechanisms have to work. If they don't deploy, we've had a bad day.
Yeah.
We allow the telescope to cool down, and the instruments to cool down, and then we start focusing them. That takes altogether 6 months to get all of that set up. And then we're pretty ready to say, let's try some science projects. Webb telescope has 4 instruments altogether. One is a near-infrared camera. It's the most sensitive of the instruments. Number 2 is a near-infrared spectrograph. That one spreads out the light of the stars or galaxies into the spectrum. Special invention that we made for that one was the micro-shutter array, where you measure 100 separate galaxies at once.
What the fuck?
The third instrument is the mid-infrared instrument, or MIRI. That's a special one because it picks up wavelengths where the molecular emissions are the strongest for the coldest objects out there. We'll be able to look way back to where we think the first objects may have been formed in time. The fourth instrument is the slitless spectrograph. It is used for extremely high angular resolution images that might have planets in them.
On average, every star in the galaxy has at least one planet. So when you look up at the sky, the pinpoints of light you see are
That's the
planetary
key.
systems, not just stars.
We are super excited about the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope because it's going to bring us new data about planet atmospheres, and my mom and I are going to be working together.
Basically, okay, this is very quick. Basically, the planets doesn't emit light, so if you're observing on light wavelength, you're not gonna see anything. But planets do emit their infrared light. So if you observe on infrared, you're gonna see the planets.
They're
like Earth.
Sort of disentangling that data.
So, yeah, let's go.
My mom is
They're gonna
discovering
shine.
planets, and I take those planets and I try and understand what their atmospheres are like.
Yeah.
Most planets that have been discovered were noted because we observed something about the star that indicated the presence of a planet in orbit around it. You're measuring the brightness of a star, waiting for the momentary dimming of light that happens if a planet in its orbit around the star happens to pass directly between the star and the telescope.
Very good video again.
We discover evidence of a planet.
If you guys are
buried
interested,
in
just
data.
look by yourself on the YouTube. You will
That can
find
feel like an abstraction.
videos like
we have
this.
to pause and remember that these places really exist.
I don't know about you, but
Someplace
this is...
There's a lava ocean rising and falling with the tide.
This is my shit.
Someplace there's an eastern horizon where 2 stars are rising, not 1.
We've only really been able to
Terrible,
scratch the
that-
surface in terms of what we know about those planets. But now with the James Webb Space Telescope, we'll be able to dig deeper and understand more about what their atmospheres are like. By looking at the atmosphere itself, you can actually get an idea of what the climate is like, and you get an idea of what the full chemical makeup of the planet is. We want to study those atmospheres because we think that there could be potential signs of life encoded in those atmospheres. Here on Earth, we have a
You're
very
talking about
specific chemical makeup in our
potentially
atmosphere that
discovering
allows life to
alien
flourish.
life with this shit. Okay.
Geology produces methane, but life produces methane in 100 times higher quantities. And so if we can look at this delicate balance between CO2 and methane on other planets, that could give us some indication of life. One of the most exciting planets that JWST is going to look at is the TRAPPIST-1 system. This is a star
Oh, I
that's
heard about
just
this.
about the size of Jupiter, so it's very small, and it has 7 Earth-sized planets orbiting around this star. 3 of those planets could be potentially habitable. Looking at those planet atmospheres is going to be like this perfect laboratory of science where we can sample the atmospheres of 7 different planets.
Potentially habitable Earth-sized planets are relatively common. We expect there to be maybe 12 billion such worlds in our galaxy alone. Earth didn't make its appearance until billions of years after the Milky Way formed, but there are planets that formed in those very earliest moments of the Milky Way. And imagine how life could evolve on a planet given 10, 12 billions of years of evolution.
Webb, because it's so powerful, you can't predict what it's going to see.
We have lots of reasons to be skeptical of our understanding of the very early universe. We have a pretty good story called the Standard Model of the Universe, which is cosmic dark matter, cosmic dark energy, ordinary matter, and gravity pulling things together after the Big Bang. But people don't have any explanation for where did the dark matter or the dark energy come from, and we don't know that that's the only kind of stuff out there. So I think we could get a big surprise way out there in the early universe.
I'm hoping, in my heart, that James Webb finds a whole new field to investigate. Even though I'm 62 years old, maybe I can go back to grad school, get my PhD on something in a brand new field that was started by James Webb.
Every time astronomers build a powerful new tool, we discover something new. Nature has more imagination than we humans have.
What makes us human is to be curious and to push boundaries and explore and increase our understanding of the
I'm
universe.
guessing interstellar
JWST
vibes.
is the next piece of that puzzle.
We are learning about our galaxy at a very rapid pace. We've gone in just a couple decades from finding the very first planet orbiting another star to having a comprehensive, specific plan for identifying living worlds. I really hope that Webb helps me to understand what fraction of the planets orbiting in the Goldilocks zone are true Earth analogs. I feel confident that my grandchildren will be able to look up in the sky and point to a star and say, there's life. I think that's going to be a moment more profound than our Copernican moment that took Earth out of the center of the universe.
Yo.
It's going to put an end to cosmic loneliness. It's going to fundamentally change what we see when we look up in the night sky.
I'm getting chills from her. Very good video. Guys. Like. Oh, I have to sign in. Oops. I'll like the video later. Oh, lights back. 1 second. I hope I don't get copyright for this. Maybe I do. But we're gonna watch a little bit of a... Wait. Can I... This...
I hear your meeting at the school didn't go so well.
It's very low.
It's like we've forgotten who we are, Tom. Explorers, pioneers, not caretakers.
When I was a kid,
It's very low, but just watch the movie. Interstellar, please. Watch it now. Do it! Okay, guys, I think that's gonna be for me today. Just to like this. That was very cool. I'm sorry about the power cutoff again, but I mean, it's not something I can control. Actually, you know what? We're gonna watch the we're gonna watch the replay because we actually missed it. So I missed it, at least. So we're gonna do NASA. Is it live stream over? Let's see.
The sun shield, the mirror. Tell us what we're...
5.
It will separate.
T-minus 30 seconds
Yeah,
and
we're
count.
gonna watch. No, fuck! I fucked up.
Jérôme, 1 minute.
Thumbs up from Jean-Luc Voyer. All systems are go. We're inside a minute now. T-minus 50 seconds and counting. As you heard earlier, the Vulcan 2 engine will ignite. Turbo pumps will come up to flight speed for 7 seconds, and the command will be issued to ignite the solid rocket boosters. The James Webb Space Telescope.
1 second. I don't get it. Capture the tab above, please. It's not doing it. Sometimes it takes a while, but I don't know why it's not. Bro, I don't know if it's always or what, but yeah. Firefox official. Well, I guess I can do. I don't know, man. This. Nah. Wait, I want to make it work. 1 second, guys. We got this. Let me actually go a little bit farther back.
Down.
2 minutes. How can I reset this?
The flight will be in two phases. You will see the first part of the flight during the solid rocket boosters phase. That will be the atmospheric part of the flight, the atmospheric flight, and the trajectory will be driven by a to reduce the aerodynamic loads. And we will have a very different exo-atmospheric flight after that.
This is around where
you
my
were
power
watching
cut off. It was
a
like
number
1
of
minute
people,
something.
VIPs and invited guests moving out to the observation platform that is right next to the Jupiter Control Center as we stand by for the 1-minute call from Jean-Luc Voyer.
Yes, watch it.
Attention pour moins 1 minute.
1 minute.
Top. À 0 moins 1 minute.
Thumbs up from Jean-Luc Voyer. All systems are go. We're inside a minute now. T-minus 50 seconds and counting. As you heard earlier,
we put this
the
on.
Vulcan 2 engine will ignite.
Battlefield 3
Turbo
song was
pumps
very
will come up to
this
flight
one.
speed for 7 seconds, and the command will be
Come on,
issued to
guys.
ignite the solid rocket boosters. The James Webb Space Telescope will be on its way. T-minus 30 seconds and counting.
Oh shoot!
Standing by for terminal count.
À tout de DDO, attention pour les décomptes finales. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, top.
Yo!
And we have engine start. And
Holy
liftoff.
shit.
Decollage, liftoff from a tropical rainforest to the edge of time itself. James Webb begins a voyage back to the birth of the universe. Punching a hole through the clouds, 20 seconds into the flight. Good pitch program reported.
Let's go! Woo!
Trajectoire est nominale.
Vehicle performance is nominal.
Can't see shit with the clouds. Bye-bye.
The Ariane 5 rocket continues
The launch itself was
to
really
fly
fast.
uphill in nominal fashion.
I didn't expect that power.
The rumble of the powerful Ariane 5 now being felt here
If
in
it
the
was like
control
a
center.
clear sky, it would be cooler, but whatever.
3D animation.
Yeah, I think this is when we came back.
We can hear the
1
noise
minute
and
after
feel the
something.
vibrations here. You're right, Rob. Yeah, impressive.
13 kilometers in altitude, 7 kilometers
Because when there's a clear
downrange.
sky, you can see
Traveling
the whole rocket for
about
like a few minutes.
0.6 kilometers per second.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
The trajectory reported to be nominal
In
by
1
Jean-Luc
minute,
Voyer,
it's gone
the
3
range
times
operations
as high
manager.
as the Everest. Okay?
You can see at the bottom of
In
your
1
screen,
minute.
the yellow line is the trajectory plot,
about
perfectly
that.
overlaid over the green line, which was the pre-launch trajectory. 1 minute, 41 seconds into the flight, about 40 seconds away from
Pilotage est calme.
shutdown of the solid rocket boosters.
I wanted to see like the first.
Coming up on the 2-minute mark into the flight.
When the separation, the first separation.
When it detects the threshold on acceleration, not the deceleration, but less acceleration for
Tous les
the...
paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Everything is okay. Everything is normal.
2 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight.
When the computer detects this threshold, it will separate.
Séparation des EAP.
Done.
We have confirmation of solid rocket booster separation from Jean-Luc Voyer. This coming at an altitude of
Yeah,
44
we already said
miles.
this, but
The Ariane 5 and
Just
James
want to
Webb
say it
traveling
again.
almost 5,000.
Okay, guys, I'll be back probably this afternoon today to continue Black Mesa because I was playing Black Mesa and I didn't finish. I'll finish that. I've been really busy this month. Yeah, I will continue streaming. I'm thinking about doing something weird, different, special for the upcoming months, New Year. Maybe it's like a New Year resolution where I try stuff, you know, for myself and even for the stream. Who knows? Yeah, I'll see you guys next time. This was really cool, and take care and good luck, and let's go to space.